Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. First question. Question about mechanical tension. It is well noted that maximal muscle fiber recruitment tops off at around 80 to 85% of 1 rep max. However, does that mean that mechanical tension would be equal across 2 exercises if performed at 85%, even if the load is greater on one of them, or does a heavier load lend itself to more tension regardless of percentage? For example, a dumbbell bench press at 50 kilograms, 85% versus a barbell bench press at 100 kilograms at 85%. All right, the thing is, I think you're meaning 2 individual dumbbells. So that's where it gets tricky because that's still 100 kilos. It's just 50 kilos per side, just like on the bench press, unless you meant half that. Well, generally speaking, no, percentages are going to matter in certain situations unless other stabilizers can become the weak link. For example, on a dumbbell bench press, there are a lot of stabilizers, additional stabilizing involved that takes up energy that could, in theory, take it away from the primary movers. That's one reason you don't see people going 85% intensity on dumbbells, because the weight gets so heavy that stabilizing something in the 3 to 5 rep range like that with a dumbbell can become very, very difficult, and you waste energy stabilizing and reduce the maximum workload you can do. That's why dumbbell presses tend to be done for higher reps with lighter weights, because you can't lift as much weight, and therefore you are reducing total muscle fiber recruitment in the primary movers on that. Whereas you have a lot more stability, and there are more stabilizers involved with any big heavy barbell movement, but not as many as something like that. So again, there can be a point to where adding stabilizers can be useful for overall full body development and strength, but there can be a point to where excessive stabilizers can reduce maximum output. And this really becomes a case of when you get on things like Bosu balls and everything, you'll notice that too. No, you'll get less fiber recruitment. The other factor to consider, no, it's not just about weight, it's also about ranges of motion, meaning it takes more work to move the same weight a longer distance. So if you have 2 exercises and one has a longer range of motion than the other, it is going to reach all the upper threshold fibers and maximum motor unit recruitment, and therefore muscle fiber recruitment, with a lighter weight. For example, take something like a deadlift with 2 different extremes you have going there. Let's say you're pulling off of blocks so that you've got it raised 6 inches up from where you would normally pull. So you're starting 6 inches higher than your normal deadlift versus you standing on a 3-inch platform and doing a 3-inch deficit. Now there's 9 inches difference in the range of motion on those 2, but you would hit more muscle fiber recruitment with a much lighter weight on the deficit because you're having to move the weight through a much longer distance. So a lot of the primary movers would be worked more effectively or equally as effectively with as much as 100 pounds difference between the 2 exercises. So the answer is generally going to be more load is going to be better, unless adding that load comes at the expense of cutting range of motion out from 2 different exercises. And that's a really, really big deal as far as these things go. This is why some exercises are slightly harder than others, and these are why some things are preferred oftentimes by competitive powerlifters, because they pull range of motion out. Sumo deadlifts move the bar less distance than a conventional deadlift. Arching your back on a bench press reduces the range of motion. A low bar squat with a really wide stance, you don't move the weight as far as you do on a high bar Olympic squat. So these are a few examples of that, to where ranges of motion are changed, and sometimes to the point to where it adds a little more weight for your maxes. So no, it's not just about constant weight. There's about range of motion as well. And then there again is the issue of stabilizers. If excessive stabilizers are used with a relatively heavy weight, again 85% plus, such as again on a dumbbell press versus a barbell, no, you can actually reduce muscle fiber recruitment as a result of the additional stabilizers, if that's why the weight is lighter. And that's usually the case with a dumbbell press. All right, next question. Hey Jason, I've been running your novice program for 5 weeks now after recovering from a back strain, but have been getting lower and mid-back tightness after sessions. What advice do you have? I'm a 220 kilogram squat and 140 kilogram deadlift for working sets right now. Thanks. All right, brother. The novice program, the 5x5, is generally written for people who have pretty good recovery, who are in perfect health, have perfect lifestyles. If you're getting lower back strains, you might not be that fantastic at recovery, or there could be some lifestyle factors you have that are causing problems, or it could be bad technique on your part. So in your case, this program might not be the best fit for you. You've previously had a back strain, so you have a recent history of injury. You're not in perfect health. I'm going to recommend that you not run my Novice program. You need to run either the cutting version of the Novice program, which is my first attempt to reduce workload for some people who can't handle the workload. And failing that, I have a linear hypertrophy program, which is, again, for people who want to do a little less work but gets mostly, if not all, of the same gains they might have gotten off the Novice program, who, again, their lifestyle doesn't allow for the maximum recovery required for a program like that. So the linear hypertrophy program is also a very viable choice for you. But in the meantime, you need to be doing some extra core work, and you need to really assess your technique if you've been getting lower back strains. But again, previous lower back strain, the full Novice program, the full 5x5 version of it, probably not the best program for you. I wouldn't recommend that program for you out of what I have, just because, again, you're not completely healthy, and therefore you're at a higher risk of injury from a program like this. All right, next question. Jason, for someone with 7 years of training under their belt looking to increase strength, could they run your off-season linear strength program if they scale the intensity back 5% for each block, except for weeks 10 and 11? I do not believe I could keep up with the accumulation of volume at your prescribed intensity, but still want to run your program to see if I can slowly milk out some more gains. All right, I actually like your approach here. I like what you're planning to do. My intermediate Novice program is for off-season intermediate athletes. As someone who has 7 years of continual nonstop training under your belt, you're probably an advanced lifter at this point, and therefore you can't run an intermediate program with the prescribed intensity and workload accumulation. And that's not a knock at anyone. That just means that you're advanced enough and have put in enough dues that you just can't progress as fast as someone less advanced than you. So reducing everything 5% would be a good baseline to see how the program goes, but I would also monitor each block and make sure you're not hitting muscle failure, because if you're hitting failure on anything, on any exercise other than the very last set in the third week of each block, you're probably progressing a little too hard and you need to back it down another notch again after that. So again, you're an advanced lifter, so you're going to have to scale back the progression a bit to run an intermediate program. And it's not to say linear progression and linear periodization can't work for advanced lifters, but they need to be more realistic about the progression rate. And that program is really written for the intermediate lifter who's a competitive athlete of some type. It's definitely not for the advanced lifter, because the progression is just too aggressive, as you're noting yourself looking at it. And I think that's very good. That's a good sign in an advanced lifter, that you're able to look at something like a progression and say, you know what, I know that the way I adapt at this point in the game for me, that's too aggressive. I'm not going to be able to keep up with the accumulation of the workload. I need to scale this back. And that's a good sign. I like to see that in an advanced lifter, because it's being honest with yourself about where you're at in the game right now. You're more likely with that mentality to make more progress and not hurt yourself. So yeah, definitely give it a go. All right, next question. Jason, I'm running your linear hypertrophy program, and I honestly feel like I'm not training as hard as I used to. I can do my 70% of 1 rep max for 3 sets of 10. Should I add 5 pounds to all my maxes, or should I just train smarter instead of harder? All right, brother, here's my question to you. Do you want to feel like you're training harder, or do you want to actually make progress? Because that's the real question you've got to ask yourself. Meaning, is it more important to you to feel hardcore and feel like you're being a badass in the gym, or is it more important to you to get bigger and stronger without injuries as quickly as possible? Because if it's the former, and you're not concerned with hurting yourself, and you're not even concerned with if you can make the most progress, but only if you feel like you're putting in the work for your own motivation, then by all means, go ahead and increase beyond that and train harder and push beyond it. But I don't accept any responsibility for any injuries you get, and I don't want to be held responsible for your lack of progress when you do that, because remember, you're doing that for your own ego, not for your actual gains. If you're concerned with making the most gains you can, you want to gain muscle and strength as quickly as you can, and you want to do so with the lowest chance of injury, I'm going to recommend that you run the program as it's written. It will get tougher over time, don't worry. So there you have it. All right, next question. Jason, Is it possible to out-eat a plateau? I have stalled on my deadlift for about a month and wonder if eating more calories will help me break through this stall in progress. Thanks. Short answer, yeah, absolutely. Eating more food, if you're on a proven strength training program and you've stalled and you're plateauing, eating more food will help you gain more muscle. It will give you more training fuel, and it will give you slightly better leverages from the extra water retention to move more weight. So can you out-eat a plateau? Yes, absolutely. However, does it also mean you're going to possibly gain extra body fat with it? Yes, that's also true. So you need to factor in for yourself, is some extra body fat gain as a result of this worth it to you? Are you okay with dieting it down later? How much do you care about it? And do you care about how much fat you gain versus how much muscle you might lose in the future when you go to diet it back off? These are things that you have to factor in for yourself based upon your individual needs and your individual goals. But to answer the question, the short answer, yes, you can absolutely eat your way past a plateau on pretty much any exercise or any plateau in muscle gain in general. You can always out-eat it with additional calories because you'll have more training fuel and the food itself is actually anabolic. All right, next question. I've been following this program that you made, the off-season linear periodization intermediate strength program. I was wondering if it would be okay to substitute the main lifts on the second session of the week, i.e. exercises written on Monday and Tuesday, then for example run with incline, bench, push press, pendlay rows, front squat, and Romanian deadlifts on Thursday and Friday. All right, to answer your question, no, absolutely not. This is not acceptable, and here's why. I wrote this program to maximize your progression on these individual lifts over a 12-week period. If you're not doing each of the main exercises twice a week, you're only getting half of the actual individual training stimulus and motor unit learning for that individual exercise. It is going to slightly reduce your ability to maximally progress at those. The whole point of this program is to put as much size and strength on you as possible while focusing on a handful of key exercises that cover all of your basic performance components and work every muscle group in your body. If you start swapping around the exercises, you're going to slow progression on those exercises. Now, like I said in a video the other day, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, talking about how often you should change exercises. If you're going to run a linear periodization program such as this one, which is what it is, that has you doing given exercises a set number of times per week, what I'm going to recommend, run those exercises for the entire 12-week set of blocks, all the blocks all the way through the 12 weeks. Then if you have different exercises that can fill the same basic performance niche, such again, swapping the back squat to a front squat, the flat bench to an incline bench, that's fine, but you need to run those for the next 12-week block. Don't switch them out in the middle. Stick with the main exercises. And again, when you get to the next block, if you want to put those in, swap them in across the board, because you really need to maximize this program and make it work on the way I have it set up on the percentages and the progression. You need to stick with the same exercises all the way through for the full 12 weeks. You need all 24 of those sessions of these main exercises. If you have something that you feel is a performance weak link that you need to address with another exercise, that's why I left open-ended accessory movements for you to put in, so that you can do that with those, so that you can work on your individual weak points that way. All right, next question. Hi Jason, what the fuck is up with injectable amino acids? Alrighty, I was unaware that there was such a thing as injectable amino acids. I've never heard of this, but all I have to say is what the actual fuck. Amino acids from protein are very, very easy to get into your body. If you eat any protein source, you're going to be absorbing those amino acids within 30 minutes. All right, you're going to be absorbing them fairly quickly. There is no reason to ever need to inject amino acids into your body. Just consume protein more frequently. You know what? If instead of injecting amino acids post-workout, if this is what the new phase that comes out, if people start suggesting this, I'm going to recommend that you eat some extra protein an hour or two before you train. And you know what? If you do that, you would get the exact same benefits post-training that you would get from whatever crazy injectable amino acid thing that they come up with. This is just trying to replace real foods with some big gimmicky hype, and I'm really hoping you made this up and it's not actually real, but given the nature of the industry, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if it was actually true. All right, next question and last question of the week. Jason, do you recommend bench pressing with flat feet or on your toes? Does it really even matter? All right, good question. I personally feel that benching on your toes for most people allows for a little more weight because it lets you use a little more leg drive and get a little tighter to start out of the bottom to get a little more pop off the chest. I'm a big fan of benching on the toes of your feet. However, it's going to depend upon what your federation allows if you're a power lifter. If you're a power lifter and you compete in a federation that requires flat feet, you need to train with flat feet. If you compete in a federation that allows you to go on your toes, I'm going to recommend that you test around back and forth for yourself and find out if going on your toes versus your flat feet lets you lift 5 more pounds for either a training max or for a given number of reps. Whichever one you can lift slightly more weight with your own personal leverages, tightness, and technique is the one that you need to do. For everyone else, I would say it probably doesn't matter, although you could use the exact same protocol that I just listed for powerlifters. See which one you're stronger at, because whichever one kind of gives you the best tightness, because a lot of it has to do with tightness, and it's that tightness that lets you use leg drive. But that's going to allow you to be stronger, and it's not necessarily cheating in the way that some people is, because the actual tightness itself can help you with additional muscle fiber and motor unit recruitment. So for some people, you might actually be engaging the pecs better by being on the toes of your feet. Test it, mess with it a little bit, and find out for yourself. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.